Miss Solomon, if she's so inclined to address you. And after that, we will take your questions. But as we're about to go into detail, and Attorney Williams, get the exhibit list, right? Because Williams said that they pulled a gun on him. Remember, this is for him not having a headlight. And Attorney Daniels and Attorney Robinson, our legal team, we knew that we were going to have to provide irrefutable evidence because the Sheriff's Department was silent on that. They only released videos that they didn't try to corroborate, they tried to explain away what happened. But because we have a good legal team working and Mr. Daniels is going to go into this, here, you got that right there. It is clear that William McNeil Jr. was not lying when he said the police had him at gunpoint. We know there are other videos that exist, right, Attorney Daniels, that we do not have. And we don't think this is the only officer who drew his gun on this unarmed young black man who, look at the video, he never escalated anything. He was never violent. He's a college student. He's never been convicted of anything. He's never even been arrested of anything. But yet, he was treated like a hardened criminal the way they brutalized him. And so at this time, I'm going to have my great co-counsel, Attorney Harry Daniels, talk to you about what this means and how significant of a development this is as we prepare to explore every legal remedy to get justice for William McNeil Jr. And I know him and Attorney Robinson have been working hard, getting ready to file the legal documentation. Attorney Daniels.
Thank you, Attorney Crump. You know, at the beginning of this case, when we were retained by William, you know, we asked the question, why didn't you get out the building? Well, first of all, being stopped and being told that you've been pulled over because you didn't have headlights on in the daytime and being told it's raining when a drop is not falling from the sky to give you suspicions at the beginning. To see an officer put his hands on his weapon when you know you didn't violate a traffic violation, give you hesitation. But to be held at gunpoint, for a civil infraction, that's an infraction where you just only pay a fine, $15 at most, to be held at gunpoint. You know, Mr. McNeil William represents our heroes of the civil rights movement. As being talked about Rosa Parks. See, in 1955, she refused to give her seat up, and it started a movement. And in 2025, you see William McNeil, college student, mentor, doing everything right. Everything he was told to do by his mother. Still subjected to police brutality, misconduct. A sheriff who willing to expand a narrative that absolutely is a divorce from reality. I said a divorce from reality. Because the fact remains that if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1 million.
Yeah.
The next day, William was arrested, taken to jail, taken to the hospital. At the hospital, he was diagnosed with a brain injury. A brain injury, closed head injury. The next day, he was sent before a judge, not knowing anything about the law. He pled, and Attorney Robinson come up and talk more about that, to suspended license and resistance without violence. You know, when I was a criminal defense lawyer, I have Braylon Ward up there, great criminal defense lawyer. You got to enter into a plea knowingly, voluntary, and intelligent.
Yeah.
How can he enter into a plea when he has a closed head injury, suffer from concussion, and can't even remember his name?
And he's in jail for not having a headlight.
Spent 2 days in jail. So Attorney Robinson and myself we're going to petition the courts not only to pursue justice on the civil grounds, not just pursuing justice on a criminal grounds and try to get the officer arrested, but pursuing justice to secure his freedom.
Yeah.
Because no way he should have been charged with a crime. Because let me be very clear. The stop was unconstitutional from the beginning. It wasn't just pretextual. It was racial profiling and unlawful. And he suffered a beating that nobody should suffer. We have Attorney Burris who's going to come next and talk about the Rodney King and how it relates to Mr. McNeil, how these things continue to happen. We're going to have Sue Ann Robinson come up and we're going to take a Q&A. Okay.
Thank you, Harry and Ben. When I saw the video, I was in California at the time. I saw it and I said to myself, this reminds me very clearly of what happened to Rodney King. It was a traffic accident, a minor traffic accident that led to someone being severely beaten. And when you watch what happened, you pull out of the car, and then you see officers pounding on him. And when you see that, you say, what the hell did what did he do to justify that? And the answer is nothing. Nothing. And so I see this as probably indicative of us as a pattern that exists within the department itself, because these officers knew that there were cameras there. And they did this notwithstanding the cameras, which suggested that they didn't feel there was any repercussions that would flow from it. That's a very important part that we will look at to see whether or not this is just reflective of how they treat black people, period. Because in the end, racial profiling is something that can be used to stop people without probable cause, without reasonable suspicion. You do it because you're black. Find a reason once you stop them to see if there's some basis you can say that articulates pretextual. That's what we have here. A pretext for the stop. The fog, the rain, you don't have your seatbelt on. None of that was true at the time. So this is a case that clearly should be focused in on why did you do what you did and what basis did you have to do it, and ultimately the damages that were caused. This is in many ways, it's like you're riding down the street and you're minding your own business, and next thing you know, you stop, talk about it in a bad way, pull out of the car and stomp. That should not happen, and there's no justification for it. And so the video camera shows all that, but from my point of view, we should not forget that the issue that happened to Rodney King in 1994, or 91 it happened, I tried the case in 94, but that conduct is ongoing, and that conduct happened in this case. And so that's what we're concerned about, is the ongoing effort of beating people for traffic offenses when there's no basis for it. And that happened here to young Mr. McNeil, but he's not the only person. You can always worry about the collateral damage that happens. There's certainly a collateral damage that's taken place here from a minor traffic offense that's led to a person being beaten up, taken to jail. We've already talked about the criminal case. That's nonsense. Nobody pleads guilty and should plead guilty without a lawyer present. That should be allowed that to take place. So I think that we're going to be on this case and looking at it. And keep in mind, when you saw Rodney King, you see this, what you're really seeing is a continuation of almost 35 years of brutality that does occur in police cases happening in the black community.
My Lord. And that's why the National Bar is addressing this at our Centennial Convention. Before Attorney Sue Ann Robinson comes to address you, and I think it's appropriate that her and Attorney Daniels and our lawyers are working to try to exonerate completely William McNeil. We were notified, Attorney Daniels, Attorney Robinson, and I, that Jacksonville Police Department, Sheriff's Office, in the last 3 years, cited 78 people for driving without their headlights, even though those citizens disputed that they even needed their headlights. But what it's telling, right, Attorney Daniels, is the fact that it was 63 of them that were black Americans. Jacksonville African-American population is only 15%. So how is it that you have such an overwhelming number of black people being charged and arrested for driving without headlights? It is exactly as Attorney Barrett said, it is pretextual. Where white people don't drive cars without headlights on in broad daylight, why are they being stopped? Why is it only black people being stopped? This is just a case of driving while black. It is that simple. Now you're going to hear from Attorney Sue Ann Robinson. She's a brilliant lawyer who is helping lead this effort. And Attorney Robinson will talk a little bit about what her and Attorney Daniels are working on as it relates to trying to exonerate Mr. McNeil.
Hey everybody, Sue Ann Robinson. As Attorney Crump said, this is a case of driving while black, and driving while black has so many consequences. For Mr. McNeil, an additional consequence that we don't talk about enough, that we don't discuss enough, is not just the physical beating, but also the spiritual beating, the emotional trauma, never being arrested, your first time you're interacting with a police officer and it's an extremely violent, aggressive experience, but also the beating of his reputation. Mr. McNeil has been criminalized. He is a college student pursuing a degree in biology. He plays an instrument. He is a man. He's a beautiful son. He's a beautiful person who was charged. He was criminalized because these officers were looking for a reason to justify their over-aggressiveness on the scene. So he now has a criminal record for no reason other than these officers trying to justify their excuses for being overly brutal on the scene. So that criminal record now should not have to follow him. It happens in all cases. They just make up charges and then hope that it goes away. So we're stopping that with Mr. McNeil. We're going to fight to clear his name, exonerate him, clear his criminal record so he can go forward, hopefully, with his college degree and be a success. Because he's doing every single thing that we direct our children to do. I'm a mother, and he did every single thing. He stayed calm. He clearly communicated what he needed. He asked why he was stopped. He showed his hands. He gave his documentation. We have to train our children how to interact with trained police officers. Civilians have to train themselves on how to de-escalate situations, and that needs to stop. The police officers have to learn how to interact with the civilians that they are paid to protect and to serve.
Thank you very much, Attorney Robinson. And before Attorney Daniels and I take some of your questions, we think it's very important that you hear from William McNeil Jr.
All I want to say is that that day I was telling the truth from the evidence in the picture. I was being held at gunpoint and I didn't feel safe. That's pretty much it.
I know Attorney Daniels and I, since it's an ongoing legal matter, we're probably going to answer most of the questions. But what is your question?
I was just asking how you feel physically.
Traumatized, still afraid of police. I don't sleep.
Can you imagine being arrested for doing nothing wrong, having your tooth broken, that is still broken even to this day, having 10, 12 stitches put in your lip, having a concussion, and then being put back in jail, and then being taken before a court, and for headlights, having a gun drawn on you for not having headlights. That's why Attorney Daniels and Attorney Robinson and them are going to file to exonerate him because he committed no crime. He didn't resist arrest. Look at that video. Believe your ears. Believe your eyes. We don't need the sheriff to try to tell us what we saw. we can interpret what we saw for ourselves. And so, William, just know you're not alone. Miss Solomon, you all are not alone. The National Bar Association and people of goodwill all across America are standing with you all. And we'll take your questions if you have any.
Ms. Solomon, do you want to say something?
Right to the right.
Yeah, because I'll let Attorney Daniels go first.
Where did the image come
Video.
from?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, the sheriff released 3 body cameras. There was several officers on the scene. He didn't release the body camera this officer had the weapon. In fact, his camera would have showed that William's hands was up the whole entire time. So we believe he was strategically not released by the Jacksonville Sheriff Office. That image comes from a body camera from one of the officers on scene. One of the videos of the release. And I'll show it down.
But note what Attorney Daniels said. We believe there are more videos that exist that have not been released. We want full transparency. The dash cam video.
It shows that it wasn't raining. As you can see, when the officers came on scene, no windshield wipers. If you had the dash cam, we start recording a minute before it comes on. It would show no rain, no fog, no smoke. This was an absolutely unlawful stop, and everything that came from it was unlawful. It's not fruit of the poison tree. It's a rotten root.
Exactly. And just know, I implore you to go watch the video from beginning to end. William did everything that was within his rights as an American citizen. I know our white brothers and sisters can't understand this notion of just being stopped by the police for no reason. For no reason. And as Attorney Barris and Attorney Robinson articulated so well, and then they have to criminalize you because people start to look. You see that he got injuries, that he's in the hospital. So if you got these terrible injuries, we got to come up with a reason to justify why we brutalized you. And so then they say, you resisted arrest without violence. Anytime you hear that conviction, you know, they are grabbing at straws. They grasping. They have nothing. And thank God that William videoed the interaction. And we encourage everybody to video interaction. Can you imagine what the narrative would have been? I guess we know because the police report is contradicted by the video. Read the police report, watch the video, and see if they're telling the truth. They don't add up.
Let me just say other part of this. There's a real rush for judgment here. Because rarely, if ever, a person who's been injured like this goes to court the next day and pleads guilty is given. And they basically eliminate some of the more serious charges. They do get a conviction to resisting arrest without violence. This is not done. This is a reason why to get him in the criminal justice system, take the off of the police by them saying, look, he pled guilty to something, right? But the truth of the matter is he had no counsel, no counsel. And to allow somebody to do that, recognize that these are serious consequences beyond just pleading guilty, because the consequences are you have a record now. You have a criminal record, and that criminal record will follow you forever. So we have to do the whole question of exonerating him from those criminal records. But with a rush to judgment, you get a plea limit to justify the officer's conduct.
Yeah.
Was there a public
Really what it is,
defender?
Attorney Barris, is insult on top of injury, literally. I mean, think about it. Now you're going to have a criminal record, now that you already gave him injuries for life, now he's going to have a criminal record. It's insult on top of injury. And no, we're not aware. No public defender.
There was no public defender appointed when he was...
No, ma'am.
This is first appearance.
And they said you can plea and you can go home, or you don't plea and go back to jail.
Which question?
Certainly. Because these young, brilliant lawyers who I'm honored to co-counsel with, they're going to challenge this conviction. And then, as we've said all along, we believe that this was excessive force, that this was a violation of William McNeil's Fourth Amendment constitutional rights against the prohibition of unlawful searches and seizures. There is no question that William wasn't afraid and was not free to go. He was seized at that moment. And why was he seized? Because they claimed he didn't have his headlights on because it was raining. Look at the video of all the other sheriff's deputy cars who came on the scene. None of them had their headlights on. This was driving while black. I don't know if Attorney Davis, Attorney Robinson, he wanted them to be terminated
and prosecuted. So the next step is obviously, Attorney Robinson, we have given notice over to the state of Florida, as well as pursue the appeal his conviction. Let me be very clear. This is not just a one-off with one officer. It was multiple officers. And I stated before, the citizens of Jacksonville, Duval County, we believe they're under siege. You know, I've been saying this over and over. You know, it has come to light in a national way that Jacksonville GSO is allowed to investigate themselves. Attorney Crump, if I can investigate myself, I'm not going to find any wrongdoing. Never. Out of all the cases, you can look. I beg you to point you to go look at their use of forces. Every use of force has been non-sustained, which saying that it didn't happen. That's a major metropolitan city. That is impossible. Attorney Crump has told you about these stops with the headlights on. 63 of them black out of 78. That's a problem. So not just following the suit on the officers that committed acts that day, but we believe this is policy, practice, a custom of the Jacksonville Sheriff Office. And we're going to overturn every rock, every stone, hell, and every pebble to get justice, not just for the McNeil family, but everybody. This is an issue not only in Jacksonville, but in America. Attorney Robinson. And I said on
well, I just wanted to clarify. So it sounds like you would be filing a federal civil rights lawsuit.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will think that
it hasn't happened yet.
It has not happened. We still want all the evidence. And you know, one thing that is awfully peculiar to us, when you have video, why does it take you 6 months and a year to investigate? I tell you, if it was somebody from our community that they had doing something inappropriate or illegal on video, it would not take 6 months to investigate. It would take 6 hours more than likely, and that video would be everywhere. You know, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office had the video of what happened to William McNeil on day one.
This is their video.
Yeah, their video. They knew these officers drew a gun on him. They knew the officers brutalized him. They knew that on day one.
And they lied in the police record. And the supervisor signed off on it. Any other questions?
I did have another question. So you had mentioned why you're doing this here while the convention is going on.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the implications for Chicago?
Well, I certainly talking to several civil rights lawyers in Chicago as well as across America. They say this is a devastating phenomenon in Cook County as well. Racial profiling, driving while black. But we see right now in America, especially with what's going on with the immigration enforcement, there are more and more unconstitutional detentions and searches and seizures. America is at a crossroads, and that's why the National Bar Association is more relevant than ever in 2025. Are we going to be a nation who respects democracy and the Constitution and due process, or are we going to be a police state where the police can do anything in violation of our constitutional rights and have no accountability? That's why the National Bar Association is making this issue be highlighted at our convention. 100 years ago, in 1925, 100 years ago in 1925, when our organization was started, it was about them racially profiling black men and lynching them, violating their constitutional rights. 100 years later, we're reminded that we have more fighting to do if we're going to make sure that all American citizens are granted the American promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the NBA is unapologetic in our defense of black life, black liberty, and black humanity.
Just expanding on your question, Wilder. So my name is Steve Harris, I'm a civil rights attorney, and I am associated with brothers at this part of Juan Dallas case, over Alabama. You asked about how does this apply to Chicago. It's supported the National Bar Association, the Association of Black Attorneys, that includes the Attorney General for Illinois, Kwame Raoul. We believe that this is a national problem. So from Kwame McNeil to Jamel Rose and to countless bodies here, police violence is an issue here in Chicago, and we're going to take every instance from Jacksonville to what happened to Mr. McNeil, and make sure that we continue to coordinate across on national lines. And so that I appreciate the question about how does this matter in Chicago. It matters all over the country, and we as a bar association are addressing it correctly.
I would say, one to get to the point what Lee has said here, why it matters. Racial profiling is a pandemic that happens all over the country. I've been in cases we've had stop data. We've had every person talk about when they stop, the race, color, etc. In every case, in every city that I've been involved in, black people are stopped disproportionately higher than all other ethnic groups. And it's very difficult. And the reason for that is these officers want to stop the car, for whatever reason, generally for no reason, so they can search your car. And why that's important here, this car was searched after he was taken away, and there was nothing found in this car. And that's the beauty of this, that regardless, there was no evidence found in this car.
They claim they found a knife that he allegedly was reaching for. Watch the video. Watch the video. And if they would tell you an untruth in the initial police report, do you think it's that far of a stretch now that this video has went viral and been seen over 50 million times that they're going to tell you the truth now? He wasn't reaching for any knife. Again, they have to justify the brutality, because if they can't, they know it's going to be hell to pay, and it's going to be bought by these great civil rights lawyers.
If you look at the video at the end, when he was in handcuffs, they put him in the car, they discovered the knife in. That's the first time they discovered it. They didn't see any knife, they didn't see anything. The video of this officer with the gun, his video would have shown if it was really, and they would have said it. He would have had it in his hands and moved.
And they would have said it. You would have heard it on the video. You would have heard them say, oh, he got a weapon. They didn't say anything about that. It was all after the fact to try to justify the unjustifiable brutality for driving while black. Any more questions? Last one.
If I'm recalling correctly, I thought I had heard some comment out of Jacksonville that because of the news was reported that there was a motive for injustice. Would anyone like to respond?
Certainly. You know, it's sad. It's very sad when you have all the objective evidence in the world. You have visual evidence, you have audio evidence, you have ocular proof of everything that happened, and you can put it in full context. You can see it wasn't rain. You can see there was no fog. You can see there was no inclement weather. You can see all of your officers didn't have their headlights on either. So to try to suggest that William McNeil staged all of this is ludicrous. I mean, it's asinine. Instead of the sheriff coming out and saying, we've reviewed the video and all of the evidence, we've read the police reports, and we believe what you see on that video is not justified. We condemn it, we hold these officers accountable, and we terminate them because we don't want police in our department to think that this is good police. But they have chosen not to do that. They have chosen to try to criminalize this young man when their Jacksonville Sheriff Department officers were the criminals on that day. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Does anyone here have a law office in Chicago besides Mr. Crump? Does anyone else have a law office in Chicago besides Mr. Crump?
I have a law office here in Chicago. Yes, ma'am. I used to years ago. Thank you. All right. Let me just put